Well, we thank all of you for joining us tonight, and you're in for a real treat because you're going to, on the radio show, folks. I'll just be real honest with you. On the radio show, we're so tight on time. We only have 22 minutes of talk time for an hour-long show, so we have to be very stringent on our time periods and what we can talk about, how deep we can get into the conversations, etc. Tonight, we're going to try to wrap up at 7:30, but as we always say, if questions and things remain afterwards, and I'll have Jason go over how to post a question. We'll stay as long as we need to. But the point I'm getting to is you're going to get to learn a little bit deeper about who I am and who Jason is from this topic this evening, because I'm going to start things off by a little background of myself for those of you that may not know, and I've shared this numerous times on the radio, but it's been years since I've said it. But I think it's very important that you understand my background and Jason's background, and how we can relate to what you as an entrepreneur are going through, right? And as I was telling Jason off air today, I feel sorry for any of you that have a financial advisor that you're seeking this entrepreneur / retirement advice from if they've never owned a business. Because like anything else, folks, you have to be in the trenches. We're in the trenches 14 hours a day, every single day in the markets. But what many of you may not realize is my background and Jason's background and how we live, eat, and breathe two things: the markets, first of all, and secondly, being small business owners. We can relate to what you're going through. And again, I'm not saying this by any means to bash our competition, but if you're shopping around for a financial advisor, I hope after today's webinar that you are going to realize that we know what we're talking about, because we've lived it, we've ate it, we've breathed it. This is what we do today. This is what I have done for 36 years now, being an entrepreneur, longer than that actually, with other businesses. So I want to share with you some of my successes. I'm going to share with you some of my failures, because like a parent, I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I made. We're going to get into, of course, tax strategies. We're going to share with you, again, some of you that may be meeting with your accountant right now, or sometime very soon, and the accountant's going to go, hey, congratulations, Frank, you had a great year last year, but now your tax liability is this. And you're going, oh my God, I had no idea it was this amount. But we're going to show you some ways that maybe possibly your accountant did not even mention to you to reduce that tax liability, even though, again, we're into a brand new year. So I think you're in for a real treat. This webinar will be available. About a week later, I think, on our website, about what it takes to get it through compliance and so on and so forth. So if you have any friends, that missed this, by all means, tell them to go to our website, sanchezgaunt.com, and they can obviously listen to the replay of this. So get ready. Here we go. Let's start off with a little bit of background, and then we'll get into the slides. So many of you know I graduated Worcester in 1982. I went to UNR for about 6 months, got way too involved in frat life and chasing women and drinking beer. And I'm like, I'm not going down the right path. I'm not paying attention to schoolwork. So my parents at that point were living in Reno, because that's, again, where I was pretty much raised. They had already moved to Southern California. I called my dad up on Christmas break, and I said, Dad, come get me, because I'm not going anywhere. My grades are terrible, and I'm spending way too much time having fun, and I shouldn't be. So moved back home with them. Again, I think I just turned 19, and went to junior college to get my AA degree. And while I was going to junior college, I'm like, hey, you know what? I gotta make some money here. So do I go flip burgers somewhere while I'm going to school, or do I start a business? And at the early age of 19, I started a business. I started my first business, which was a lawn mowing service, or a gardening business. Started it with a friend. He lasted about 2 weeks, because we were in Lancaster. By this point, it was like April, May, so it's starting to get hot. And literally, we handwrote, or we had a girl, because our writing's so terrible, we had a girl handwrite a flyer, and we went and handed it out to numerous neighborhoods. And before you know it, the phone's ringing. I had my mom as the receptionist. She would answer the phone. We'd book the appointment. I'd go out, give them a bid on what it would cost to do the gardening each week for their yard. Before I knew it, I had a full-fledged business. I mean, I was working 7 days a week, and on average, like during the week, I'd mow about 4 to 5 yards a day. On the weekends, I was doing upwards of 10 just by myself, because he quit. He lasted about 2 weeks, this friend of mine. And that was my first taste of entrepreneurship. I haven't counted. I should have for tonight's show, but I think I'm up to 22, 25, actually, I think, businesses that I've had in my life. And so when I started Sanchez Wealth Management, which was 1990, Valentine's Day of 1999 is when I left Smith Barney and went independent. I was scared to death, but at the same time, I wasn't. I didn't have a dime to my name. I had young kids. We weren't married that long, but I had $19,000 saved in my 401k. And I said, you know what? This is the time to do it. If I fail, I'm still young enough to get out and go back to work for, quote, working for someone else. But I had 5 years of experience working for a major Wall Street firm. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. And so I cashed in that 401k, paid the taxes on it, but it turned out to be the best investment in the world because that $19,000 capital that I used to start the firm is now worth millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. Right? We have a very, very successful business, and I attribute it, as I'm going to share with you in a moment, so much to this man that's sitting here on the other side of the camera. But we know what it takes to run a business. We know the challenges that you face. And it really wasn't until, I'm not kidding you folks, probably 10 years ago at the most, that I really started focusing in on saving for retirement, because it was, every dime we were making was going back into the business and, making payrolls and rents and all that stuff. So I know this balancing act that you as an entrepreneur have to deal with. And again, this is where our real life experience will help you as a business owner, because obviously we know the investment side, but now we also know the investment side. We fast forward 5 years ago. This beautiful man came into my life. His parents were clients of mine. They said, hey, we got this son that he likes to talk stocks. Jason and I picked up the phone one day and we started just casual conversation, and we'd call each other every once in a while. Finally, he flies out. We sit down at this little greasy spoon in Gardnerville, and I'm like, you're not just some guy that just dilly-dallies in stocks. You're the real deal. And as I always tell my clients or our clients, I found someone that was smarter than me when it comes to the markets. And I'm not talking, the Goldman Sachs of the world, but a real down-to-earth guy that knows more than I do. Like, we got to come together, dude. We got to come together. And that January, that was December, that January, Jason was living in Boston. I'll let him give you his quick background. He came out, and that's where things started with he and I. And when we get into the succession planning side of things, I'm going to tell you how I screwed up until Jason came into my life and how things have dramatically changed as of 5 years ago. So, Jason, brief background on yourself, and then, we'll get into this.
And I think the interesting part, too, is I look at it a little bit differently, too. I grew up with parents who were small business owners. For 28 years, my parents ran a BMW repair business in Marin County. Grew up in Northern California. And so I've been sort of on the side of watching the ups and downs and sideways of owning a business. So it almost comes fairly naturally to me as we make this step to already know the stresses that people are going through. And very much sort of as you talked about, John, small business owners, I feel like, one of the big mistakes that they tend to do is all of the money is plowed back into the business, right? You're able to try to eke out what you can as far as a living, but you never really spend enough time thinking about the succession. And it doesn't necessarily mean you turning over the keys per se, but more so, like you so eloquently said today on the radio show, the role is not to create a job for yourself, right? You're building a business. And if your plan is part of your retirement wise to sell said business, you need to build something that doesn't require you as a full-time employee to be successful. And so that's the part why he and I work well together, is we very much complement each other, right? His strengths are my weaknesses and vice versa. And that's also another good thing to know of yourself as you're on this webinar for that reason. We're here to learn about some of the things you may not be aware of how to better save for yourself. So again, quick story. I joined John in January of 2020. My background, I went to Chico State and was an econ grad and always wanted to be in the markets and the business. I interned for a broker at Payne Weber for 2.5 years while I was there. And they did a bunch of work with a firm by the name of MFS out in Boston. And so right after I graduated, I saved all summer working for my father, detailing cars. And I flew out to Boston and I literally walked around handing out resumes. I got lucky that it was in 1998, and they were hiring pretty much anyone with a pulse to come work in the service center. And I got a phone call flashing in my hotel room the day I was leaving that MFS wanted to interview me. I did a phone interview with them. Once I was back home, I got lucky, got the job, moved out to Boston, and worked in Inner Circle dealing with high producing reps just like John. And within 18 months, I was on the trading desk. Again, worked my tail off, and it was exactly what I was hoping for. Fast forward 20 plus years later, my parents again are little clients of John's, and we talked in spring of 19. In the fall of 19, my boss calls me in and asked me to lay off 2 people on the desk at Panagora, the firm I was working at. I managed 14 people at the time. What I did instead was I raised my hand. And after talking to John, who said, "Get your ass out here," I got lucky enough, and that's where everything sort of started. This is a job that I love doing, very much to the point. I know I can look clients in the eyes and have the utmost of confidence that I've done the things that I'm telling them about. I've built the things I'm telling them about. I've traded hedge funds and mutual funds and ran trading desks, and all of these strategies that we build for clients are truly built just like I would build them for myself. And so that's the nice part about our firm. And again, this topic resonates well because these are things that people don't think about, my parents included, right? Where they spent all of their hard-earned money trying to keep the business afloat, trying to keep us happy. Instead, trying to think of ways now wisely. You need to start budgeting for yourself. You need to start to be smart about how you can save income from the business that's generated to put towards your retirement, because the end game of selling your business is a heck of a lot harder than you think. It would make you feel a lot better to know that you've accumulated a retirement plan in lieu of just counting on a liquidity event to solve for retirement. So all that being said, I think we should get going from there.
Let's do it. And I'm going to share with everyone some stories about clients over the years that, thought they were going to get a big fat paycheck when it was time to sell that business, and they had a rude awakening. All right, so here's what we're going to be focusing on. We went over our team. Of course, we have Ashley and Eduardo and Bailey and so on and so forth. So we have a great, great team behind us. So we're going to go over the importance of retirement planning for the small business owner. We're going to discuss some of the retirement saving options that you have available to you as a business owner that others don't. Remember, you as a business owner have the opportunity to save a significant more amount of money pre-tax than a W-2 employee. Okay. We're going to talk about balancing again the business growth and the retirement contributions, tax strategies to maximize those retirement savings. As Jason just mentioned, the succession planning, and then some key points to tie it together. Remember, one final thing I forgot to mention, every one of you that are on this call, we're going to give you a copy of the book I wrote a few years ago called the 3 Pillars of Life. Balancing your personal life, your business life, and your personal wealth. And I wrote this 400-page book. It took me almost a year to write it. I self-published it. I paid for everything for you, the entrepreneur, because you will learn in this book. It's written as basically like a study guide, and you will see your progress. You will score yourself at the challenges you're facing in your life as a business owner today. And then by the time you get done with the book, you will see dramatic improvements again in your personal life, your personal wealth, and in your business, because I've been through this, right? The challenges that you're going to be facing, I've been through those. So I shared with you my advice in this book of how to overcome them. If you're like, you know what, I'm not spending much time with my kids because I'm at the office for, 6.5 days out of the week, and my kids don't know who I am. I've got a section on how you overcome that. And again, there's hundreds and hundreds of challenges you face as a business owner, and I hope to share with you through the book. And every one of you are going to get a copy of it. Bailey, our marketing director, will reach out to you after the webinar over probably tomorrow and find out the best way to get it in your hands. So that's our reward for you guys tuning in this evening on top of everything you're going to learn. All right. Retirement is often overlooked by the business owner. right? And why is that? Exactly what Jason just mentioned. The primary reason it's overlooked is because we're trying to survive as business owners. I mean, that literally is the real life story. You're trying to make payroll, you're trying to pay rent, you're trying to do everything. And oh, by the way, yeah, you'd like to make $1 or $2, but guess what? We all know as a successful business owner, your employees, your customers, your vendors, they come before you do. So instead of you being at the top of the food chain, you're the one that's taking all the financial risk. You're at the bottom of the food chain, right? Everybody else is getting paid. And for those of you that may be young entrepreneurs, if you're not careful, and I'm glad you're tuning in tonight, if you're not careful, you will remain at the bottom of that food chain. And as Jason just said, you'll wake up at 65. We get the calls all the time. You'll wake up at 65 and go, oh my God, I'm ready to retire. I'm burnt out. I've been running this business for 30 plus years. I forgot something. I forgot to save for retirement for myself and my family. Yeah, I paid my bills, but I don't have anything for myself. Guess what? You're going to die at the office. We don't want that to happen.
No.
Retirement is very commonly overlooked by the business owner. Jason, what are some of the long-term risks of neglecting your personal financial security?
I think the interesting part you just touched on, right? Dying at the office. And again, we're being hyperbolic, but health things come up, right? You may not be able to be as productive in your older years as you are now. And time is always going to be the thing that you never know how much you have left, right? The budget of time, unfortunately, no one really tells you how much is inside of that account, right? Yes. So being conscious of the fact that you only have so much time to save for yourself. Other long-term risks are there could be a change in the need for the business that you own, right? You may be having a great year and able to make a good profit that year, but something changes where your business is now a VHS tape and DVDs are out, right? And so you need to always be conscious of doing your best to forecast expectations and assume a growth rate given your efforts. But at the same time, you need to be aware that you have to pay yourself first. And again, very much to John's point, if you leave yourself for last, unfortunately, it'll be a case of you're hoping that you can sell your business to somebody else, and you're not in a strong position to do so. So trying to accomplish financial security for yourself, setting up structured savings plans and goals will be helpful long term.
Absolutely. All right. Now, key retirement savings options. Before we get into this, I want to share with you, and we don't have a slide on this, but I jotted down some points before the webinar this evening. Kind of thinking back again, as an entrepreneur, what are some of the challenges that I faced and that most likely you are? So here they are. Bear with me as I look off the camera. You have fluctuating income, right? You don't know where the next dollar is coming from in a lot of cases. You're reinvesting your profits. You want to grow your business. Again, everybody comes before you. You want to grow at the expense of your personal wealth and personal retirement. Your exit strategy is uncertain. Yeah, I want to retire at some point, but did you build the business to retire? As Jason said, did you build a job or did you build a business? A job is just a paycheck. A business is something that runs better when you're not there, and it's something that's worth something to someone else down the road as part of your exit / your retirement strategy. You have lack of traditional retirement benefits. This one is one of the biggest misconceptions that we hope to get across to you this evening. The days are gone that you need a couple $1 million to open a 401k. We have 401ks that we start with zero, right? We really do. The cost these days, very, very affordable. What are we looking at nowadays, Jay?
Approximately $4,000 to start a 401k, but as you'll touch on, there's tax incentives that potentially mitigate some or all of those costs through deductions. So yeah, it's not a massive number, and this is for a 401k. Again, we'll touch on SEP IRAs and things along those lines, but a simple 401k, early on, it's a little more of a lift, but certainly worth it long term.
Right, absolutely. The other thing, so lacking traditional retirement benefits, again, keep this in mind, you entrepreneurs. You can start any plan that a Fortune 500 company can, any plan that's out there, right? If you wanted to set up, if you had the cash flow and the ability to do it, you can set up what's called a defined benefit plan that we'll talk about. You're talking in most cases, north of $300,000 that you can save each year. You can't do that if you're a W-2 employee and you're tapped out 32,000 depending upon age and a few other factors. So you have the world opened up to you. You just have to be taught what plans are available and which ones are best for you. Other challenges you face: financial planning complexity, right? I've got my business, I got my personal life, I've got all these different things, and you just lose track, right? There's not enough hours in the day to keep track of everything. That's why you need someone like us or a great financial advisor to handle that aspect of your life. Delayed retirement, potential for delayed retirement, right? One of the common things I hear from entrepreneurs: yeah, I'm going to retire next year. I'm going to retire next year. And then, God forbid, they have a major health issue, as Jason mentioned. They never retire. Now, how do we overcome all these different things? Well, again, as you're going to learn, we talked about early and proactive planning. This is what we're doing for you this evening. Early and proactive planning. You have to do it. Just like hopefully you wrote a business plan when you started the business and you update it as the business matures, you need to do the same thing. You need to be proactive in your personal retirement planning. Regular contributions to the IRA accounts, or excuse me, to the retirement accounts. Little bit every single paycheck. It's amazing how that money adds up and can be worth, in some cases, millions of dollars. Developing the exit strategy, we'll touch on. Again, seeking professional guidance. You hear us talk on the show all the time. The importance of having a team. Have us. Have a great CPA. Have a great business attorney. Have a great estate planning attorney. Have a great insurance broker. Or are you throwing money away in rent? Well, maybe you shouldn't be. There's great SBA loans out there. So get a great real estate broker and a great mortgage broker on your team, right? Build that team just like you do with your employees. Build that same team that's important to that same team with the professionals in your life. Let them handle all this. That's what you pay us for. Diversification, we know how important that is. And then most importantly, prioritize your personal well-being, because without you, this business may not exist.
And I think just real quick, that's the financial coach aspect, right? All of those things that you mentioned for some people cause more anxiety, right? Like, there's all these things I need to do. I don't want to do it. Again, one of my running jokes is I could probably do my own dental work. It wouldn't turn out that well, right? That's why you hire folks to help give you and lay off those responsibilities of, look, come in, we say, here, you as business owner, you're going to say, here are all of my questions, here are my concerns, and then also, what am I not asking, right? And that's what a good planner, a good coach will help you with. And the number of people I see walk out of that door smiling ear to ear because they've made the choice to go do it, it is a tremendous weight off shoulders.
Great point. All right. Here are what we put on the screen now. These are just some of the basic, and there's still others, believe me, that we won't have time to go through. These are some of the basic plans that we really believe in. And this, folks, listen, is where we can help you reduce your taxable income, whether it's for last year, this year, or years going forward, and simultaneously saving for your retirement. Because I want to make sure everybody's on the same page. Let's say you have $100,000 of adjusted gross income, right? This is what you're going to be paying your taxes on. Let's say you're in the 30% bracket. So roughly, 30%, I know it's a little bit high, but roughly $30,000 you're going to write a check to the government, right? Well, how would you like instead to take that $30,000 and put it into a retirement account? Oh, so now your adjusted gross income went from 100 down to 70,000. Now you pay the 30% tax on that 70,000. So now it's only $21,000 tax liability. You get my point? Every dollar you put in one of these plans is reducing your taxable income. It's growing tax deferred. And most importantly, it's a nest egg that you are building for you and your family in the future. Solo 401k, one of the most beautiful, least talked about plans that are out there. These are designed for those of you that are a one-man or one-woman operation, or if you are a husband and wife operation, okay? If you have any employees, close your ears for the next few minutes. So what a solo 401k allows you to do is it's based upon a calculation the accountant does. But I'll make the numbers real generic. Again, it's roughly 25% of your adjusted gross income that you can put into it. And Jason, I drew a blank. If you can.
Contribution limit wise, no different than your own 401k if you worked at a big firm, right? You can put up to $70,000 this year through what would be your paycheck wage plus profit sharing from the firm. And again, like John mentioned, your spouse who may work part-time with you, et cetera, they're an employee, right? They're also able to contribute reducing the taxable income for the firm, and you guys are now not paying Uncle Sam. That money's going into a portfolio that's built for growth for your retirement. Again, instead of writing a check to the tax man, write the check in the future, but why don't we let it grow for 10 to 20 plus years prior?
The reason I drew a blank, I apologize. My brain was thinking about SEP, our next topic. So so we're at 23.5 again for 2025 for your solo 401k contribution, just like a normal 401k. You get a $7,500 catch up if you're age 50 or older. And again, as Jason correctly mentioned, you and your spouse, if your spouse is part of the business. So, theoretically, you can be shoving away a whole bunch of money. But we touched on this the other day on the radio show, Jason. Remember this? That if you read the IRS rules, that 23.5 and that 7,500, that's not the full amount. The full amount you really can do is $70,000 if, again, the calculation comes into play and you're eligible to do that. So you need a pretty good, chunk of income, usually north of 300,000 to hit that full 70,000. But again, your accountant will run this number and tell you exactly. But what's great about the solo 401k, it's like the big boy. It's like the 401k, meaning a bunch of money can get put in there for you as the business owner. And one thing a lot of people don't understand is it can be invested into anything other than stamps and collectibles. But the other thing that people don't realize is you can borrow against it. Yeah. So I love setting these up, or we love setting these up, say, for real estate professionals, right? Give you an example. Going back, in 08, 09, 2010, real estate crashed and then it starts coming back. We had a bunch of real estate agents as clients. Why? Because they're 1099 employees, even though they may work for Coldwell Banker or whomever, they're 1099 employees. So we had set up these solo 401ks. They'd have a good year. They dump, the maximum amount in. So in a couple of years, some of them had over 100,000. Then I said, look, you like to invest in real estate, borrow against your solo 401k, 50% or $50,000, whichever is less. And they would go borrow, and let's say when they had 100,000, they'd go borrow 50,000 against their solo 401k. They paid themselves back the interest, and they took that 50, and they would then take that money and use it as a down payment on a rental property, right? How smart is that? You're putting a down payment with what was pre-tax money. So you won in the beginning when you put the money in the solo, you reduced your taxable income. The rest of it's growing tax deferred, and you're borrowing money that you're paying yourself back, and then you're putting it into an investment that hopefully is going to produce cash flow, and it's going to grow. So it's a win-win. It really is. Now, let's go to the SEP IRA. Really popular a few years ago, Jason.
Yeah.
Quasi-popular now. What's the pluses and minuses of this?
Yeah, I think with the invention of the solo 401k, there's less SEP openings. But the thing with the SEP, not dissimilar with the contribution limits, but it's actually way faster to open. You're not doing the normal reporting that a 401k requires. A SEP IRA, all the money is employer contribution. If you have employees, it starts to get a little expensive because of needing to, your employees aren't putting any money towards it. You are, right? So John mentioned really it's 25%, the max is, of employees' compensation, but that's coming out of the employer pocket. Again, it's something that I tend to see more often with self-employed individuals or very, very small outfits versus a 401k plan is better if you have multiple employees. But yeah, put money away tax deferred, and you can let it grow. It doesn't have the loan ability that a 401k has as well. So just another choice. I think of SEP as it's March timeframe, and you really want to get something done quicker for last calendar year. We can open up a SEP in a heartbeat, and you're able to make those contributions per your CPA's guidance, and you save yourself a lot of money. So that's usually where we go for that last minute, for lack of a better term, allocation for folks.
And in regards to the last minute recommendation, this is what we were talking about earlier, and that is the IRS regulations state that SEP can be funded all the way up until the time that you file your federal tax return. I go on extension every year. Most business owners do. CPAs just tend to take their entrepreneur clients, and they file extensions, and then come October 15th or 17th, whatever it may fall on, then you go ahead and file your taxes. This is the beautiful thing about a SEP. It's really the only plan, other than some nuances with the next plan we'll talk about. It's really the only plan that you can fund for last year all the way up until your federal tax filing deadline. So again, if you meet with your accountant and he's like, hey, again, congratulations, but you have a big tax liability, make sure you ask he or she to run you a calculation for the SEP IRA, because again, it reduces that adjusted gross income by whatever the contribution amount is, gives you tax deferred growth. We've got a lot of them with our clients, and again, they can be invested into pretty much anything other than, like I said, collectibles and things.
And real quick too, just because you do a SEP this year, right? It's very much to John's point, you have all the way until October when you file to do it. Next year, you could open a 401k and roll those monies into your new solo 401k. So it's not A or B and you're stuck. We have lots of different levers we can pull to help solve for your specific tax consequences.
You bet. You bet. Now, once your business gets mature and you got what we call reliable income, right? Reliable income. Then you graduate to the granddaddy of all retirement accounts. You talk about a way to save a significant sum of money, and it's called a defined benefit plan. Now, a 401k, solo 401k, SEP IRA, those are defined contributions. A defined benefit plan is what, the old days you used to find when you went to work for a major corporation and they paid you a pension. You're essentially going to create your own pension fund with a defined benefit plan. What is the most significant about a defined benefit plan is the amount of money that you are able to sock away in a defined benefit plan is absolutely staggering. And again, this is one of these where there's a lot of different rules you have to follow, but the max contribution to be considered is $350,000. You can put in, especially those of you, if you're in your 60 and above, like 60 to 65 is the prime age, you can put in upwards of $280,000 pre-tax, growing tax deferred, that will then, you can either create a pension payment off of it, or when you're done funding it, roll it into an IRA, invest it into whatever you want. But imagine it, let's say you had a business again where you got reliable cash flow, because you have to commit to about 3 to 5 years of funding, right? You got to, like I said, you got to make sure that you've got good, reliable cash flow. Don't do this when you're a startup. But when you get older, you get, some years under your belt, take a look at a defined benefit plan. And to be honest, we are in the midst of doing this ourselves. We're graduating from the 401k profit sharing and a company match to a defined benefit plan, because again, Jason and I, as owners of Sanchez Gaunt Capital Management, we want to be able to sock away as much money as we possibly can. And hands down, this is the best plan to do it. They're a little expensive, but once again, we can sit down with you and show you all the intricacies of how they work. But again, think about it. You work for someone else, you can put in $31,000. Work for yourself, and if again you got the cash flow to do it, you can put in almost $300,000. And if you have a spouse in the business in the same age, guess what? They could go up to that $280,000 also. It's staggering, folks. It really is. And again, most people don't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Just what's up on the HSA side of things?
Yeah, if you have a high deductible health plan with your business, and again, if you don't know if you do or not, because even small business owners sometimes don't even know, you can ask your healthcare provider, do we have a high deductible plan? But with it, you can save in what's called a health savings account, an HSA. And there's annual limits on how much you can contribute to it. But the hack is, don't use the money you contribute into it for your medical spending, your copays, so on and so forth. Come out of pocket for that if you can, and save that HSA money, because it can go into perpetuity. You can continue to save each year. If you decide you're not going to be a small business owner and you end up working for someone who has something similar, you can roll your HSA right into their HSA plan. But it is the only thing I know of that if you put it away, you put it away tax-free, as in it's deducted. And then if you pay for medical expenses, you don't pay taxes at any point. It literally, you never pay taxes on the money if you use it for medical costs, and odds are all of us will need some sort of medical asset saved when we retire or fund long-term care or all sorts of things. But the HSA, much like your 401k, there's a suite of offerings that you can invest in, but please, 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 even as a business owner or someone who works for someone, if you have a high deductible plan or you don't know, ask the question.
Yeah.
If you can do an HSA, it's an amazing tool for saving for retirement and
Absolutely.
medical loss.
Before we advance to the next slide, I do want to throw out something that a lot of times brings in confusion. A lot of people think that if you have a 401k when you're an entrepreneur or a solo or a defined benefit plan, that you're not eligible for an IRA. And that's absolutely not true. We covered this, pick up our podcast. It was a few weeks ago. We did this topic in depth. But remember, if you are not eligible per your accountant because of your income, because you have the eligibility into a 401k, if you're not eligible to deduct your IRA contribution, remember it's $7,000 this year. If you're over 50 or older, you get to add another $1,000. So that's $8,000. Got your spouse in there. Hey, that's another $8,000. Now you're putting $16,000. You may or may not get the deduction going in, but one thing I can promise you is you are going to get tax deferred growth. Then you have to make the decision with us or with us and your accountant. Do you want to go traditional IRA or the Roth IRA? Remember the primary difference, that Roth, after you hit 5 years, age 59 and a half, whichever is longer, you can pull that Roth out 100% tax free. What we touched on the show the other day is what's called a backdoor Roth, which is a phenomenal strategy, especially if you're a business owner, where there is income limitations of who is eligible to fund a Roth IRA. But when you start getting into these different types of plans we're talking about, we can show you ways that no matter what your income level is, that you can get money funded into a Roth IRA. I'll just leave it at that. Again, it's called a backdoor Roth. They're phenomenal strategies. Again, very few people do them, but we'd love to get the opportunity to show you how they work. So
just
there's no excuse not to save. It's all up to you.
Yep. The interesting part is I don't even know why they have limits on Roth IRAs.
I know you mentioned that the other day.
Honestly, like you can contribute to a Roth IRA regardless of income. And so I don't know why they have that constraint. It just makes you go through an extra step. But if you have any questions, we'll help you get through that step. It's very easy.
You betcha. Now, how do we balance business and personal, right? How do we balance this whole thing? So balancing business growth. So the first thing, of course, that's the most important is we have to have strategies. What's our strategy for reinvesting into the business? I created a little saying that really stuck with me, and I always share it with clients, and I call it the springboard effect. And what I mean by that is this. Starting right now at 7:08 on February the 26th, I want you to change your mindset of how you look at your business, okay? Your business is a diving board. Your business and all of your skills and knowledge of creating a successful, profitable business will springboard your personal wealth, right? So in other words, instead of saying, I want all my eggs into one basket, meaning I'm going to cash in on the business, which again, we'll go into more detail in a moment. That's going to be my retirement. Instead, you change your mindset starting right now and you say, this business is a cash flow machine. It's like your personal ATM. You're going to take those profits after leaving enough in there to cover your expenses and emergencies and so on and so forth. You're going to look at that extra profit and go, you know what? I'm going to springboard these extra profits that my business has created and move them into my personal wealth side of things. Trust me, the minute I started looking at things that way, you completely change your mindset of your business. Because instead of saying, oh, I hope and pray at some point someone's going to give me some money for this business, you go, you know what? I'm going to take my excess cash flow right now and I'm going to springboard it into my personal wealth. I'm going to be in control of that. Because frankly, none of us know where our business is going to go. Yeah. You can't control what you contribute to your 401k. What about goals, Jason, setting the goals as a business owner?
And I think that this dovetails right into what you were saying. I mean, your goal is to save for your retirement, right? That business is there, yes, to hopefully you derive a great deal of joy out of it, and I'm sure you derive a great deal of stress out of it as well. The two go hand in hand. But setting marked goals with the help of a professional too, to sometimes help you where to plant said flags or how to build a budget to get you to where you need to be. But setting the goal of paying yourself first, setting the goal of making sure that your retirement is funded as this business evolves is huge. Allocating profits and splitting them to say, even as a young kid learning, I can spend this much and I have to save this much. As you age, unfortunately, some people tend to not do that as well. They say, here's what I make, whatever I don't save, I spend. Well, right. The saving part ends up being at the end of that paradigm far too often. Your retirement account, your savings needs to be a bill. it has to be just as important as your mortgage.
Right? Where's the bill in the priority list, Jason? That retirement savings analogy. Where 1 to 10, 1 being the most important bill you pay, 10 being the least important. Where's that personal savings?
It has to be right at the top. Right? It is paramount. I mean, ultimately, yes. You need a shelter. You need shelter over your head now, but you also need shelter over your head later when you're more vulnerable. Right? You can make things work. You can figure things out now. When you're older, it may be even harder to do so. Imagine trying to come up with that cash flow later when you're elderly versus now while you're still nimble and able to maybe work another job while you're building out this business. You're not able to do that when you're older. So trying to make sure that your retirement is the most important thing will help you have peace of mind that this business that you're building is also building some confidence and also some comfort in your future.
Absolutely. I see we had one question, Jason. I want to tackle this, and we want to thank Gail for this. She says, can I roll a previous 401k into a SEP IRA? And the answer is yes. You absolutely can do that. You will not get any deduction, Gail. So, if you move 10,000 from a SEP to your new 401k, or maybe you went to work for someone, you can roll it into there, but you cannot get the deduction that we discussed earlier. It's the only caveat. But absolutely, great question.
You would have already gotten that when you put it into the 401k. But yeah, you can consolidate them, or you can start your SEP IRA fresh and just move your 401k into an IRA rollover with the thought that later your SEP also collapses into it. Oftentimes it's, maybe people like to see a cleaner starting point on the SEP and see that where they've contributed to it, whereas your IRA rollover is a bit more of a catch-all sometimes.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there's lots of different things you can do.
Our last point on the slide, the case study business owner's roadmap to balancing growth with retirement savings. I think we kind of touched on this. I want to give you, again, some real life examples of clients in a moment. But again, to Jason's point, kind of ties, going back to the setting the goals. Pay yourself first. Realize without your personal financial health, there is no business, right? You have to be financially strong. Your credit rating, so on and so forth. Everything is dependent upon you as the entrepreneur. The days are long gone where, let's say you want to go out and lease a new building for your business, or lease a copy machine, whatever the case is. Unless you're a very well-established business, guess what? The first thing that they're going to ask for is your personal guarantee. They're going to run a credit check on you. They're going to look at your assets. They're going to look at your cash flow. If you are weak as a business owner, do you think they're going to grant credit to that business? No, they're not. So again, you are number one when it comes to saving for retirement and building that future. All right, now we're going to get into one of our favorite areas, the tax strategies. So the tax benefits of retirement accounts for business owners. Well, we briefly touched on this. Just remember this. Every dollar you put into your 401k, your solo 401k, your SEP IRA, whatever the defined contribution or defined benefit plan, is going to be provided with tax benefits, right? Meaning every dollar you put in, you are not paying income tax on that money. Every dollar that your employees put into your 401k or any other type of retirement plan you offer them, you as the employer are not paying your share of FICA. They're not paying income taxes. No one's paying a dime of income taxes on that contribution. And so when we set up a 401k for a business and we talk to the employees, this is one thing that we really emphasize to the business owner is we want to encourage those employees to contribute as much as they possibly can to that retirement plan, not only for their personal benefit, but for you as the business owner. Every dollar, I'm going to repeat myself, every dollar that goes into that retirement account, you're not paying your employer taxes on it. For those of you that may be in the construction industry or in some industry where your insurance, your general liability insurance is based upon your payroll report, guess what? They're not going to usually charge you if you have X amount of dollars going into that retirement account, right? That's not part of your overall wages that they look at. So workers' comp is another big one. Many of you, workers' comp is outrageous, even for offices like ours these days. Guess what? Those dollars going into the retirement account, They're not calculated in your overall calculation for your workers' comp. So you win, the employees win, and of course you're trying to do the best you can for your employees. You want to keep them around. You've got a lot of money invested into them, and therefore you want to keep them there. Well, guess what? It's pretty hard to keep quality employees these days if you're not offering them a retirement account, a retirement plan. Jason, what are we talking about when we talk about leveraging deductions?
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to try to reduce that bottom line number as much as possible while putting as much into your pocket as possible, right? So, the ability to deduct those contributions to have them reduce your taxable income at the end of the year is a godsend, right? So you are paying very much less to Uncle Sam, and the taxable versus tax advantaged accounts jumping forward. That's also something to be thinking about, where is reducing your taxable income the most important to you, or is putting away money, paying the taxes now through a Roth, for example, and you can have that Roth 401k grow and not owe taxes in the future. So it's not always just, how do I reduce my taxable income now? It could be more of a case of, look, I'm comfortable paying the taxes now, but in the future, I'd like to have assets that don't have tax exposure. Those are some of the ways that you can do it too, while also benefiting from the ability to put away way more than you could in just a normal Roth IRA, $7,000 to $8,000. As we talked about earlier, you can put 30 on upwards of 70,000 into a Roth 401k or traditional 401k.
Absolutely. We mentioned a couple of times, let's get specific while we're talking about leveraging deductions. The IRS wants you as a business owner to offer your employees a retirement account. So they will give you a tax credit of up to $5,000 for over a period of 3 years if you establish a retirement account for your business. So what is a tax credit? For those of you not familiar, it is a dollar for dollar deduction, right? If that plan cost you $5,000, the government gives you $5,000. Obviously, it's $0 out of your pocket. If the plan costs you $3,000 to start up, the government will, again, going to give you $5,000, so they're going to cover that $3,000. That plan cost you nothing to start up. If your plan costs $6,000, they're going to give you $5,000, so now you're $1,000 out of pocket. Tax credits are the most beautiful thing in the world besides depreciation. So again, this is the government's encouragement, because remember, folks, as small business owners, we are the economic engine of our country, right? We employ more people than the government, than any city, state, anything. We are the economic engine of this country. I still think the government needs to pay more attention to us as business owners. We faced a lot of this over the last few years with COVID and things. So, who knows what will happen under the Trump administration, if maybe some more favorable things will come to again, entice people to be business owners. But take advantage of this one. It is, again, something a lot of people are not aware of.
And also, too, remember, California, folks from California, with the new California laws that went into place, that if you have a business with 5 or more employees, you must offer a retirement plan or register with CalSavers by immediately, right? So it's something that you need to be thinking of as well if you're a California business owner.
That's a great point, my friend, you brought up. And a lot of states are going to this. We still don't really have it here in Nevada, but I promise you at some point, I see it, in my opinion, I think every state will end up getting there at some point. I really do, because, again, everybody benefits from it. Okay, well, we're right on schedule. We're going to get into a very touchy subject called succession planning. Building a business exit strategy that funds retirement. So let me share with you a story. Okay. So I had this longstanding client. They were elderly in their early 70s, and he was in construction, right? Ran a very, very successful plumbing business for a number of years in the Reno area. They made a great living. They lived a great life. It wasn't a big business, 4 or 5 employees. And then all of you that know construction, it's always seasonal. They're going to bring in more employees in the summertime versus the wintertime, et cetera. But he made a great living. Pulled out $250,000, I can't remember the exact amount, a year, and he did it for 1 million years. No debt on the business, ran the business out of his house. Again, no debt, everything was great. He developed a health problem, and all of a sudden, he couldn't go on the job site every day, doing the plumbing work. He had employees. Luckily, he had one really good employee and two, kind of labor type of employees. But they kept the ball rolling as he had his health problems. The health problems lingered for a little bit over a year. And he calls me up one day. We've been talking through his health problems and things. And he calls me up and he goes, John, I can't do this anymore. My body just won't allow me to do this anymore. I'm ready to sell the business. I'm ready to retire. I said, beautiful. Let's run some numbers and see what you're looking at. So we looked at the cash flow of the business. We looked at a lot of different things, his assets. Again, there really were no liabilities other than he owed some money on some workers' comp premiums and, miscellaneous things like that. And I always like to ask the entrepreneur when I start this exercise, Frank, what do you think this business is worth? And I think the number he came back with to me was about $750,000. So over the course of the next week, we ran the numbers and I said, Frank, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to call around to some of your competitors. He said, what are you talking about? I said, I want you to call other plumbing companies in the area and see if they're interested in buying your business. He says, okay, fair enough. Because think about it. The first place that you would market a business such as that would be with a competitor if that business was built properly. So he made a few phone calls. We had a call, like I said, about a week later. And he was almost in tears. And I said, what's wrong? What, did you get some bad news? He goes, John, I called around to 5 different competitors, and the only amount of money they would give me was what my trucks and my tools were worth. They saw no value in my name. They saw no value in my blue sky, which is the invincible value that you build, your good name, your reputation. They gave me nothing for that. Basically, they wanted to pay for some beaten down trucks and a bunch of shovels and pipe wrenches and so on and so forth. I said, what was the dollar amount? He goes, it was $90,000. And I said, $90,000 is all they're going to give you. You were hoping to get, 750, 720, somewhere in the high sevens. Now, what are you going to do now? And he goes, I can't do the work anymore, so I've got to retire. One of the most heartbreaking things I ever had to do, Jason, is to tell this man, this is the importance of building a business to sell.
Right.
From that point on, when I ran a coaching program, when I wrote the book, I had a lot of contractors as clients, and I emphasized to this group. I mean, some of these were real high-end lakefront builders in Incline Village and things. And I said, look at, you're making a ton of money right now. We talked about the importance of saving for retirement. I said, but is this business that you quote, have built, is it really a business or is it a job? And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, the real test, the real life test is, if you walk away from this business, will it continue to run? And most of them said, no, if I'm not there, no one's managing my crew, and, I'm the one that does all the billing, and I'm not bidding the jobs, and on and on and on. I said, so you built a job. You didn't build a business. And therefore, back to Frank, my plumber, he built a job. He didn't build a business. And you talk about a heartbreaking conversation that I had to have with Frank and say, look, there's nothing really you can do. Your business is what it is. It's a bunch of beat up trucks and shovels, like I said, and wrenches and, on and on and on. So this poor man busted his butt for so many years thinking he's building equity, he's building this retirement asset, when in reality, it wasn't worth anything, right? Because he didn't build it to sell. So our advice to all of you is, when you're talking about an exit strategy for your business, think down the road. And I'm going to let Jason chime in here from his days dealing with private equity firms and things like that. Many businesses now, vet practices, medical practices, on and on and on, they're not being bought by a competitor down the street. They're being bought by Wall Street money.
Right.
The one thing that Wall Street money wants to see, it's these two beautiful words called reoccurring revenue. How does private equity look at a business, Jason? If they're going to fund, if I'm interested in buying you, if you're successful financial advisor, which you are, but you're ready to sell, I'm not in the picture. You're ready to sell. I'm going to private equity to get the money. What are my bankers going to be looking at?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at clearly what the recurring revenue of the business is. What is the structure of the entity? What are the processes that are built in the entity? And there's a couple different things. Do they want to buy you for your trucks and wrenches and location, right? That could be a true asset for some folks. They may have a great lot or a great building, or to your point, a great name that someone just wants to utilize with their process to leverage into something bigger. Or do you have a business that may be run very roughshod and expensive, and they're able to take those recurring revenues, cut a ton of the costs out because they're smart, utilize technology, and can run it a heck of a lot cheaper than you do, thus making the bottom line number a lot bigger. And that's another way that you can look at it. And then finally, how important is the person that is running the firm to the game, right? Like you mentioned with that story that you told, sounds like that person was all of the business, right? And that's not a negative, right? We all feel special and want to embed ourselves, but something that I'm always thinking about every day is what can I do? And I ask these guys all the time, and I ask John, what can we just systematize what I'm doing every single day? Whereas if I got hit by a bus or he got hit by a bus, the story goes on, right? That someone could come and help, pick up the pieces versus, like you mentioned, if you're really the only person and I do all the billing and I do all of this, and if I'm not there, the place is gone. You're probably not building something else that someone else can buy, and you're going to have a tougher time trying to sell it. And so as you're thinking of what my retirement plan is, I want to fund it. I need goals. I need to be smart about making sure I'm paying myself. But at the same time, it can start now. Start to build this business, even if it's 3 years, 5 years, 20 years from now, to be an asset that you're building, just like your retirement account, to eventually hand over to someone else, hopefully at a multiple plus higher than what you're doing now.
Right. That multiple is the key word. I'm glad you brought that up, because again, if you're selling a business that will get, whether it's bankers or private equity, venture capital, whoever is behind the buyer of that business, providing the funding, that multiple is what they'll look at, is what they'll assign, excuse me. So depending upon the type of business, they will look at that. And again, back to Frank, my client, there was no reoccurring revenue, so therefore there was no value to the business. Now, I didn't get a chance. I wanted to finish the story real quick. So when I started my coaching business, and like I said, I ended up with a lot of these contractors. Just the opposite. I took on another plumbing contractor up in Truckee, and he just a very successful guy, but could never break a couple $1 million a year. So when I started coaching him, the first thing I said is, what's your reoccurring revenue? He goes, we really don't have any. So what did I have him do? He went out and he built a service division, bought a couple vans, right? Big deal. Payments were $1,000 a month, and employed guys that created service contracts and service business. That is reoccurring revenue. That business went from being worth about $1 million to, the last time I talked to him a couple of years ago, was worth north of $3 million. Why? Because he has reoccurring revenue. So if you're ever going to sell your business, unless you have licenses or patents or something like that, try to build your business, if it's applicable to you, where you're going to have reoccurring revenue. And you can take that reoccurring revenue and then you assign a multiple to it for your industry. Like our industry ranges anywhere between 4 to 10 times whatever the business is producing on a reoccurring business, right? It varies again from industry to industry. Go to your vet, find out if your vet's owned, your vet hospital, if they're owned by one of these large vet hospitals. Vets, like I said earlier, vets, dentists, doctors, they're all getting bought by these private equity firms because they have reoccurring revenue. Right. That's where the real value of your business is. Just remember that, reoccurring revenue. Take yourself out of the business and say, you know what, if I was going to buy this business, what is it? What would I want? Jason brought up a good point. What's your, what's the reputation? Do you have systems? Do you have policies in place? What happens if you're not there? Because folks, keep in mind, if a private equity firm or any business owner buys your business, they're going to probably want you to stay on for a while. Then they want you the hell out of the picture, right? They want to do things their own way. So you may say, oh, I'm a great guy, and I got a bunch of buddies down at the country club or on the golf course, and of course they're always going to be clients. No, that's not the way business looks at it. If your business is a key integral part of your retirement, pretend you're not there and run that business. That happened to me. My wake-up call was, as many of you know, back in 2019, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. Came out of the blue. Jason was my first phone call after I got diagnosed. And I said, look, I'm going to try working. I got through like the first round of chemo, and I'm like, dude, I can't I can't do it. I can't think. All I want to do is sleep. I'm in pain, blah, 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 blah. He picked up the ball. We had a succession plan in place. And this man picked up the ball and ran with it. He didn't just run with it. He went all the way down the field and he went to the goal line. We had a record-setting year that year. I was able to focus on my health, become cancer-free, become healthy again, get my life back because we had a succession plan and we had a great team in place, right? So same thing. We didn't get into this tonight, but remember, build a team, right? You're not the business. You may think you are the business, but you're not. You need to build a great management team or partnership, etc., and just say, if I'm not there, will this business run? Well, our business not only ran when Jason picked up the ball and ran with it, it has excelled and continued to grow beyond our wildest expectation ever since that time period. So we lived it, we breathed it. Real quickly, Jason, I've never asked you this, so I don't even know what your answer is going to be. What went through your mind when I made that phone call to you saying, I'm out. I'll probably won't be here for about 6 months as I go through chemo and so on and so forth.
So it's 2022. You said 2019. I was still out there, but yes. I don't really remember, to be honest with you, other than just the shock and awe. But you know that you're, you have already, again, not to keep it. You already had a solid business. My goal was to keep running and keep working as hard as you always had, and know that things will go the right direction, right? And back to what we said is, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. You never know you're going to get that call, or that call is you, right? Like, you need to be preparing for these things and not kicking said can down the road, because you never know when retirement's coming. You never know when some life change is going to happen, and you'll wish to God that, the last 5 to 10 years you'd been socking money away from your retirement instead of, I'm going to go buy this thing because, hey, I had a good year and I'll get to the retirement later, because you don't know when that time's going to come. And so we've got a great team here, and would be honored to help anyone with any of these questions. Please don't hesitate to reach out. We really enjoy being a coach and being a partner in your success. So.
Absolutely. Great way to wrap it up. Well, I don't see any other questions at this particular point. I know we've probably, at least I hope we've kind of stirred the pot a little bit in your mind as far as things you need to be thinking about as far as a business owner. Again, our goal tonight was just to make you aware of what we see with our clients, what we've experienced as business owners, and help you learn from it and again, excel. Our dream is for all of you to be able to, you're busting your butt, you're taking the financial risk of building a business. We want you to reap the rewards, but it takes a lot of work. We want you to have a successful retirement. It takes a lot of work. We're here to help you, guide you, coach you through it, and just be your partner as you progress through this entrepreneur journey. There's nothing better in this world than having a successful business. I'll tell you that from firsthand experience. There's no greater pride than saying, I built that, or myself and my team built that, hopefully is what you say. But it does require a team to do it. All those people I mentioned earlier, get them on your side. And trust me, if you choose the right people, sky's the limit of what you can do. Sky's the limit on how much money you can make, what quality of life you have, on and on and on. But if you're just, if that business is just you, it's a scary, scary time period. So, like I said, I hope you learned a lot with us this evening. Please feel free to reach out to us. You see our contact information on the screen there. And, you're going to get Jason or I. I mean, we're not passing your call on to anybody else. We're it, and yeah, exactly. And then again, Bailey will reach out to you and discuss or find out the best way to get you our book. Again, 3 Pillars of Life.
You can tell John how you want him to sign it.
More than happy to.
Right.
I've autographed a few of them. Just
it's a big feathered quill. He's dipping it in ink.
I'm just embarrassed that I can't remember the year I had cancer. I think my brain shut that out.
You said 2019.
I know.
I was like,
that
feels that long ago for you.
It feels a lot longer than that.
Good.
That is for sure.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, God bless all of you. Thank you for letting us be a part of you. Thank you for listening to the radio show. Please tell your friends about our podcast, which is available every day after the radio show ends. And again, sign up and we'll keep you on our contact list for our next webinar, which we'll have next month. But it's been an honor to be with all of you. And again, thank you so very much for your time this evening. God bless. We'll see everybody later. See you, Jay.
Bye-bye.